Okay, welcome to this podcast. We have our MC and our game show host for the November 16th event, Jimmy Mack. Jimmy, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And yourself?
Doing excellent. So, just to let the listeners know, you and I have not even talked yet. Your preference was let's just go shoot from the hip, from the cuff, and just have a conversation. And I propose that we do this in two phases. Number one, let's talk about the event, everything surrounding it, your experience with running these types of shows. And then for those who want to stay afterwards, I want to dig into a little bit Jimmy Mack history. Who is Jimmy Mack? Where are you from? And we'll talk about some personal stuff. So
Sure.
let's start with on November 16th, that's a Saturday in Ile des Chênes, there's a Family Feud style event called Public Servants versus Citizens. And there's a whole bunch of other things related to that. I'm sure some of our listeners have seen the video or the posters. But Jimmy, do you like to go by Jimmy, Jimmy Mack, Jim? Like, what's your favorite moniker?
Uh, Anything but the A word, I guess. I don't know if we can say certain things on the podcast, but Jimmy is just fine. Jimmy Mac is fine. Everyone, it's either J Mac, Jimmy Mac. I don't know. Whatever you want to do, whatever's easiest for you.
Okay,
Oh,
we'll see what comes out and see what flows. Okay.
sure, yeah. Just don't call me James because my parents always did that, and then I knew I was in trouble.
Forget it. And by the way, don't feel a need to try to be funny. It's not like, you meet somebody as a professional hockey player and you're having a conversation with the guy. You're not going to say, hey, can you go do some slap shots?
Well, I'm glad you said that because I've always maintained that where people are in a stand-up comic sense or that particular hosting sense, and they expect people to be funny or say funny things, but I'm always of the opinion that I'm doing this free, so I don't have to give you anything funny.
There you go. There you go.
Right?
So,
Like, and as terrible as that may sound, I mean, I have a joking sense to that, but it's kind of interesting you say that because we don't expect athletes or anybody that you meet on the side, like you just said, to hey, you meet a quarterback you like, can you throw a ball to me? It's
yeah,
it's sort of in the moment where there's other guys who are funny when they're doing interviews for whatever they say, but I mean, if you're just conducting an interview of what's going to happen and what's this family feud like and where have I been, well, if some funny comes out, great. If some funny doesn't come out, at least you're getting the background history.
awesome. So let me set the stage and I'll let you go with it. The idea with this event was to bring members of the community from neighboring municipalities, from towns on the public servant side, and the citizens in our community. And in a there's 365 days out of the year. Let's pick one day. We don't have to talk politics. Let's just have
Yeah.
fun. And let's have a game show where the politicians are going against the citizens. And you tell us about some of the past Family Feud type game show events that you've hosted. And what should people expect from both players and audience members?
Well, if you're familiar with the Family Feud game show, which everyone should kind of know what Family Feud is all about. It's like the second longest running game show in history, other than Price is Right, and I'm talking like concurring seasons. There are other older game shows, but I mean, Family Feud is still number two. So we now have, I think Family Feud went into a lull, and now that we have Steve Harvey, who I've worked with a couple times in that saddle, he has totally rewritten and rejuvenated the Family Feud game show. So if in my experience, I mean, I'm coming in here with you guys on November 16th thinking this is now the time where the citizens can prove they're smarter than the politicians,
Love it.
right?
Yeah.
And that's sort of how I've had students versus teachers, right? Like an adult sense game, and we've gone and we've had coaches versus the team, and there's all kind of scenarios we've had, and I always find those are the best ones because you always want to outdo the person who's been teaching you or showing you what to do, right? They're always, no matter what you are, whether you've been a coach or you've been a teacher of some sort, you always have that sense that well, this person is smarter than me because they're teaching me, or they're running this, so they, they're smarter, or they act smarter. Well, this is now the citizens' time to stand up on that stage and say, hey, we are way smarter than you guys running the show. And that's where I think the fun should be, right?
Yeah.
And this is all I'm going to say. If the politician sides, if the political side is listening to this or viewing this, I'm not sure if you're doing a video cast too, but the whole thing is to have fun that day. That's the main part of this show. This isn't a time to be a stick in the mud with your answers. If you've seen the game show on TV, our show is very loose, just like Steve Harvey has it. So I always give this example, and I'll probably do it that day in a sense, where I'll usually start with the crowd, and I'll say, if you don't know how the game works, this is kind of how it works. There's 100 people been surveyed, and we look for the top answers of the question. And I always go back to this one show where it was back in, oh my goodness, probably 2007 or 8. And I was told, listen, not that I'm not by any means like a dirty comic in a sense, but it's an adult show. So things can happen in an adult show. I'm just steering it. I have nothing to do with comes out of your mouth. So I was told that this particular show we're doing has to be squeaky, 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 squeaky clean. And the owner, or former owner, pardon me, it was the father, and the new owner was the son. So the father is the one who had this company. They were all panicky because he's a very squeaky clean person. He's a very religious person. We don't want any swear words. We don't want any association to anything. And I'll never forget this. So I have a card, and it's a legit question that's not used in our game. And I'll ask you the question, and you answer it, okay?
Okay.
Ready?
Hot seat. Here we come.
So here's the sample question. Name something that contains nuts.
That's a tough one.
Okay, so just give me an answer. Again, much like the game show, you got 5 seconds.
Peanut butter parfait from Dairy Queen.
Okay, so excellent. Like the thing might come up and say ice cream, right? So
Sure.
That's a great answer. No,
That's a match. Yeah.
It's a totally great answer. Like most people will say peanut butter, Mars bar, O. Henry bar, Christmas cake, who knows what. And this older gentleman, I said, name something that contains nuts. And he didn't skip a beat. He said, my shorts. And the crowd, it was just a wave of laughter that went across the room. And I remember looking to like who would be my judge for answers. And I said, well, there goes that clean show, because he just opened the door for everybody to have fun. That was the level we're at. That was the level we're going to stay with. And I would never admit this, because I know that the booker might be a little angry at this, but instead of one show, like we do one entire show, we ended up doing 3 shows for them that night. And it wasn't the fact, and even the person running the show, they didn't want to dance like it's usually a dance or something after, but they ended up being such a good crowd. And usually a performer is like, an hour and a half, you're kind of done talking already. But it was just nonstop. They just didn't want to stop. And we didn't want to stop the show because they were having so much fun. The person with the contains nuts, he actually joined in the next game, and which he never wanted to be part of. So that's sort of how we like to have things happen, where at the end of the show, and in reality, my job is to end the show with you wanting more. And then hopefully you book again next year, kind of thing, and we do it all again in a different side of things. So it can go either way. So that's why I'm saying the politicians, I'm not asking anyone to come out and think, sexual innuendo or whatever. But if you overthink the game, if you overthink what you're doing up on stage, you're not going to have a good time. So it's literally whatever comes to your mind, just say it. I've learned one thing, and I've been doing this since 2003 with Amazing Entertainment, and prior to that, working with this organization through comedy and stand-up. But since 2003, I've learned one thing: there's no wrong answer. There is absolutely no wrong answer, because that's the answer that you think. So it can't be wrong, right? And if there's 100 people surveyed, how do you know that? If I would have asked number 101, he didn't have your answer.
Yeah.
So there's no wrong answer. It's all about having fun. And literally, sometimes, and I'm not giving away any hints here or how to answer some of the surveys that we have, but sometimes the sillier version that might be in your head is better than the serious one you think you should say.
Yeah. Especially
Right?
for a game show night that's supposed to be just fun.
100%. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's like, it could be anything. It just doesn't matter. You could ask for name something that's yellow, and if somebody says, a peach, well, okay, I have seen some peaches that have some yellow tint to them, and that's not a wrong answer. It's just not in our survey. So
no pressure from the contestants. Just
none.
be yourself. Have a good
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
like, you've kind of set the stage where you're expecting the citizen side of the aisle to win over the politicians. What if we start getting a winning streak from the politicians?
I don't think that's going to happen. I've seen the city roads.
Okay, so we've got a challenge. The politicians have the challenge to prove Jimmy Mack wrong.
Yeah, if you put it this way, this is why I think that this is going to be fun, because how many times have we heard, why are there so many potholes? Why can't these politicians fix it? If I was in power, I would do this, that, and the other thing. Well, now it's the time for the citizens to prove that, hey, we are smarter than the politicians we elected. But you elected them, so what are you asking? What are you complaining for?
Yeah, awesome. Is anything else you want to talk about, either from the attendees standpoint for what they should expect if they're just audience members, or those from the audience that want to participate? We will randomly be choosing 20 players, because
Yeah.
there's 5 feuding games, 4 people per side. So there's going to be 20 people that are already chosen. There'll be 20 people pulled from the audience. Anything you could say to on that, what to expect?
Well, I would say this, that if you're at a legit TV taping of the Family Feud show
Mhm.
and you blurt out an answer in the audience, you will be removed. So obviously we're not going to remove anybody, but it's you'll have your turn.
Respecting the game,
Sure. Yeah.
respecting the
Like,
players,
don't
yeah.
yell out the answers. There is a time that if nobody gets the answers correct, let's say there's still 3 answers left on the board, and one team, wins and one team defers, and we, the game ends, and there's still 2 remaining answers. I do go to the audience, so they do have a chance to get involved in the game afterwards. And if it comes down to, normally, if there's prizes and things like that, we will have people win tickets to enter a draw for prizing. If I'm not sure what's in that contract, but so again, if you're not up on the stage and playing the game, you still have a chance to get in on the prizing or whatever, because I go to the audience and try to find the next couple answers on the board, and you do get prize tickets or whatever it may be. So yeah, just hang on to your answers, because it definitely makes the game better for the people playing it, and it kind of ruins the game for the people playing it if you are blurting out the answers. Because there's been times, and this is the other thing that I've always told people, that and sometimes during a show, not that I turn like heel or angry at people, but someone, like, I could be asking you, let's go back to the name something that contains nuts. So I ask you, hey, Mark, name something that contains nuts. And you say peanut butter parfait, Dairy Queen. And the reason you said it is you couldn't think any. You just finished saying to me, boy, that's a tough one. And someone yells out peanut butter parfait. And you answer peanut butter parfait, and it's not up there. That's when I turn to someone and say, this is why you don't listen to the audience.
Yeah.
So they've given you a wrong answer. They cost you maybe the game, right? So that's what I always say. If it can be ruined pretty easily by someone who takes an answer from the audience. I'm not saying that the audience doesn't have the right answers a lot of the time, but there are times where they're wrong too, right? And that's part of a game show. But if you're not up there playing, and you're like let's say there's 4 of you at the table, and you're number 3, and number 2 takes the answer from the audience and says peanut buster parfait, and you get it wrong, and the other team wins the game because of it, but you actually had the right answer with Mars bar, you would be pretty ticked, I'm sure, because most people want to win a game and they're competitive.
So speaking of winning, let's talk about prizes. You mentioned prizes. The way that we have it set up, people come in, they're automatically entered for door prizes. You don't have to actually do anything as a attendee. The second prize that you can win is if you're chosen to be a contestant player against the existing teams, the set of 4 that wins a feud will get a prize bag each. So that's how the contestants are able to win prizes. So that's how we've done the prizes. But I like your idea of having separate little prizes for you to use at your discretion with the audience. So we'll try to figure something out like that.
Like if you going back to the door prize thing, you might want to pick up just I don't want to give it away, but if there's that many, we might not even run into that many, but pick up like 10 $2.25 Tim's cards.
We've got some of these.
I can't see what that is.
It's a coffee mug with the Southeast Commerce Group logo on it.
Okay.
And my camera's goofing around here trying to find me. So let's say that we'll have some Yeti style coffee mugs available at your discretion.
Oh, those Yetis are good.
My camera is following my cup now. Look at
that.
I
see that. Your camera is very thirsty or having a caffeine hit.
Okay. Oh, look at that. It's so this is one of those new Insta360 cameras.
Yeah.
And it's set to following me.
Oh, well, I would return it. Now, did you get this off Marketplace, or is this one of those Temu purchases?
Yeah, no, I was right off of the website. Let's try to bring her back here. So I apologize for the there we go. Now I gotta move the cup fast enough so it doesn't realize what I've done.
Oh, good job.
Hey, I fooled the AI. Look at that.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. So then if you're okay, let's talk about Jimmy Mack. Like, how did you end up starting your career or your interest in entertainment, let's say? So give us the journey of the Jimmy journey.
How long do we have?
Well, you only have till top of the hour, so let's give us another 20 minutes, half an hour max.
So I guess my journey was back in my day. I would say 1991, 92-ish. I was, I have a real job, and I worked for the city of Winnipeg, and I used to dress like, I would wear a bandana, and I'd wear some shades, and I worked with a couple of individuals who, let's just say, they were motorcycle enthusiasts, and they used to call me Savage all the time for Randy Savage because I had a beard,
I can see that.
and I had the glasses, and then everyone was sort of afraid to talk to these guys. So I remember going back to my girlfriend and one night, and I said, you know what, these guys, they're not bad guys, man. They're lots of fun, and they work with us, and we're not interfering with anybody's life outside of working. And they started talking about the movie Scarface. So I had never seen the movie Scarface before. And I went back and I asked her, and she said, well, yeah, let's go to the video store and rent Scarface. Boy, oh boy, I really am old. So we went and we rented Scarface, and we're watching Scarface. So I don't know what, I started kind of dabbling in the voice thing with Scarface. So the next day, we're at work or whatever, and the guys, nobody would sit with these guys. They would come in and they would do their thing, and they were talking, and I think I called one of them. I said, hey, you blinking cockroach, what are you doing, And they just went nuts with the Scarface thing. So then they started calling me Montana was my nickname for that. They went from Savage to Montana. But then I was also a big wrestling fan at the time, still am. So I started fooling around. Anybody can do Randy Savage. I mean, if you can get deep enough voice, you can do a Randy Savage voice. So I started doing the Randy Savage thing. And then I started doing a couple other impressions. And that's where it started. So one day I'm driving to work. I'll never forget this. I'm driving to work, and 92 City FM had a contest on, and it was a comedy contest, and Tom McGoran was on, and he said, well, tomorrow we got 3 contestants coming in tomorrow for the comedy contest to be at the Comedy Oasis, and you get time on stage at the Comedy Oasis if you can win our comedy contest. And we have, whatever, Bob, Rick, and Jimmy Mack will be here as well tomorrow. And I'm like, did I just hear my name on the radio? So I get to work, and I said, which one of you dingleberries here entered me in a comedy contest? And these biker guys, and they were big. Like, the one guy was mad. He kind of stood up. He goes, "What do you mean you're not going?" I'm like, "No, I'll be there on time." So I went, and I put together some of the voices that I did, and I guess people went into their comedy contest on the radio thinking just come in and tell a couple of jokes, like, regular jokes that you would tell each other. And I came in with an actual semi-routine for my 3 minutes, because I didn't know what else I was doing. I'm reading on how to do stand-up and what do you do, and so I won.
You have to go to the library to get a book
Yeah.
to learn how to do that, right?
Yeah, I think I still have the book. I'm probably overdue, but so I won, and I went to the Comedy Oasis. And I talked to the manager, Jack. His name was Jack at the time. It probably still is, actually, not at the time. But Jack managed it and owned it. And I said, hey, I won this comedy contest. And he said, okay, well, come here on Monday for amateur night, and you can do 5 minutes. And you might have to bleep this out. And I looked at him and I said, fuck you, 5 minutes. If I don't get 15, I'm not even showing up. And he looked at me and he goes, okay, show up on Valentine's Day. That gives you 3 weeks, or whatever it was, 3 weeks. You show up on Valentine's night, and that's your night, and I'll give you 15. And if you're not funny, I don't expect you to be here ever again. And I was like, fine. Yeah. But again, I didn't know. Like, you don't know how long 5 minutes is if you've never done that. I just thought, well, hey, I just won a comedy contest. I must be the superstar here. And so then I went. I still have the article. My mom kept every little thing, of course. And I still had the article. And it actually said, Jimmy Mag in the article, something like Jimmy Mag showed more than a little promise on his first night on stage. So that's what happened on that particular night. Now, after that, I don't know if I lost your feed or you're still hearing me.
Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you, yeah.
Yeah. So my AI camera is goofing up on me again, but we got you on the screen, so we're good. I'm going to switch cameras, but you keep going.
All right. So after that, the manager, Jack, asked if I would want to host at the Comedy Oasis. And I said, sure. What does that mean? And he said, well, every night you would be the guy, introducing the acts. And so he really was, I give Jack Salvaggio all the credit for any successes I had up and to get to where I wanted to get to at the time of a traveling comic. And I traveled for 11 years full-time doing stand-up. And if it wasn't for Jack, who he actually told me, and if there's any younger people trying to start out, it's not really your dressing room humor that you think is going to win. And he actually said to me, he goes, listen, I like your stuff. It needs work, obviously, but you're funny enough to be the host for what we need. But you have to come in every night you're on stage with a different line or a new line in your show. And the day that I don't hear anything new from the previous night, you're done. And to me, that was the best thing he could do, because so many people get complacent in their comedy and they don't have new jokes, or they don't like to write new things when they're starting out. They kind of rely on the first 2 laughs they got, and they just kind of build, like, you got to sort of, and the Oasis people would come sometimes twice a week. So you don't want to always do the same things for the same people that are coming out. So he really taught me to do something different all the time. And that was what helped me get along. And that's pretty much how I started doing comedy.
Excellent. So apologize for my camera. I am still here. You get that little dot there, so you've got the full screen on your side.
Well, here's my big. I got big jugs. So hang on.
There we go. Stay hydrated. Um,
Yeah.
let's talk about geography. Where do you originate from? Where do you live now? And where do you think you're going to end up in the next 5 to 20 years?
Well, I always say that I grew up in Winnipeg, but I don't think I've ever grown up. So I was a North Kildonan kid and went away to school for a couple of years, Notre Dame, the Notre Dame Hounds, and came back here. And my parents moved while I was at school, but I finally found them, and I ended up in the south end of the city is where I ended up, and I'm still here in the south end of the city. So where I'm going to end up in the next 20 years, probably. Hopefully not the cemetery, but you never know. That could be where I'm going. I'm at that age.
Where's your destinations in the world that you enjoy going at? Do you do like winter getaways or summer
No, I
takeaways?
stay here. Like
You're a local, true local guy.
I'm a true local guy, and I ended up, I was in the media for 7.5, 8 years, and I think I just like I stopped touring and doing stand up then, in a sense of other than like corporate work, like your group. And I have a normal day job again, which I enjoy. I'm not on the road every weekend. um, as much as people think that's a great life to be in, sometimes it just gets exhausting going weekend to weekend, and you're in a new place. And like I loved it. At the time when I was doing it when I was younger, they used to call me like a road warrior because I wasn't afraid to be on the road for 12, 16, 20 weeks at a time. And I don't know, like now I go away just to visit friends for like 4 days, and I'm already like, okay, I just want to get home, right?
Yeah.
And it does sort of take a beating on your body, like whether you think it or not. And if anyone doesn't think that entertainment or not having a real job in a sense doesn't take a toll on you, even just look at athletes. Like these kids are 19, 20 years old. They already look like some of them already look like they're in their 30s. Like, and that's their body might be in their 20s, but I mean, every day traveling, every day figuring things out, not being in your normal bed, not having a normal sleep pattern, it does take a beating on you. And so I just like being home now. But for traveling, I guess you could say I've been all over the world. I always like I to me I was never, well, boy, this gonna sound terrible, but I was never a fan of Winnipeg and performing in Winnipeg. Winnipeg seems, and it still seems to be very hard on their like up and coming entertainers. And Brad Garrett, everybody loves Raymond, everybody knows Brad Garrett, always said that if he had to do a new show for Vegas, he would come to Winnipeg and do it. Because if they laughed in Winnipeg, it would be a standing ovation in Vegas or anywhere else in the world, because Winnipeg is such a tough nut to crack for their entertainment. Don't get me wrong, they love their entertainment, but they're a tough audience. Like as much as we love to laugh here, it's a tough audience. So that Toronto was probably one place I really didn't enjoy being. Anything big, I guess, for that sense, like Vancouver, not so much. Toronto, not so much. You get out to the Maritimes and things like that, they just want to laugh and have a good time. Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatchewan, forget it. Saskatchewan are tons of fun. But yeah, Winnipeg, I don't know what it is. They're a tough crowd.
So the good news is we're in the south side of Winnipeg, so we're a little bit more rural. So we might have a little bit more fun than the
Oh, you
average
will. You
Winnipegger.
will.
Yeah.
I guarantee, like any little town show that I used to do, like for comedy side of things, I would take some of the newer guys with me to open up and practice their time. And if it worked at a comedy club here and they got a little ha ha ha, in the country, in the outside Winnipeg rural areas, people just want to have fun. It's a totally different world, and they appreciate the humor and they appreciate the entertainers, making their way out there and having fun. So I can guarantee you guys are going to be good, because it's like everybody knows each other there, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of that home mentality. So I like the rural settings. The rural settings are fun, and they seem to be a little more outgoing than some of the city shows. And that's on the comedy side of things. The game show that's a totally different thing. That's a different animal all in itself. I think everybody wants to play the game show, wants to be up there, and wants to have fun. So it's a little bit different. And just going back to the game show thing, I'm not even an entertainer for you guys that night. I literally drive the bus and I just steer. You people are the stars. There's no two ways about it. The audience and the people competing on stage, you are the stars. I am just the guy reading the questions. And I will have fun with your answers. It's off the cuff. It's never the same. That's why I like it, because unlike stand-up comedy where it's kind of a routine in your mind and you know where you're going, the game show is just it just goes out of nowhere. And I'm just as surprised as you guys are with some of the answers, because some surveys I haven't seen. So some of them I already know what answers might be popping up, but they change too, because Amazing Entertainment, there's so many bookings, they have to change their surveys so you don't get the same ones twice, right? So I look forward to the game shows way more than stand-up now.
Let me throw you a curveball question, and we'll finish off with an obvious one. So 2 questions. Do you want to share your story on the events that led you to get an appearance on the Trailer Park Boys episode?
On the who episode?
Trailer Park Boys.
I was never on Trailer Park.
Okay, well then there's an impersonator out there that was the Trailer Park Boys for you.
Oh, well, maybe. Unless you're talking Julian.
Okay, so skip that question.
Yeah.
The next question would be Trump Mania shirt.
Yes, Trumpomania.
Trumpomania. Is that one of your new favorite wrestlers?
It's Hulk Hogan endorsed President-elect Trump now. I can call him that. And for Halloween this year, like I always do a Hulk Hogan cosplay every year. I kind of look like him when I get dressed into it. So I ended up buying a Trumpomania shirt because that was the big thing for Trumpomania. And then, of course, he won. So, and my mustache is still dyed blonde right now to look like Hogan. So I just have fun with it. I like going out and having conversations with people about some of the politics. And some people get angry because I wear the Trump support shirt, I guess. And you know what? It doesn't even bother me. I'm Canadian. I don't think people should worry too much about what the American. You didn't have a choice anyway, right? Yeah. So have fun with it. If I just, in reality, this is my only thing for Donald Trump. They tried to kill him twice. They tried to indict him and get him in prison. Nobody could do it. So in a wrestling sense, he's kicked out of that outlet too every time. And I think he's in my opinion, he just talks like a regular person. Like he's, for lack of a better example, he's the Don Cherry of the States. And if you don't like what he says, too bad. And I hope, especially there's a couple things that I personally liked on his side, where he's trying to get rid of income tax for people that work overtime. He's trying to help the seniors not deal with taxes because, hey, they're retired. Like I don't even understand our country, how my parents should be paying income tax when they haven't worked for 25 years. It makes absolutely no sense in my mind. And they want to, like Trump wants to help the servers of the world, of the United States, who get tips and have to get taxed on them, which our servers get that too, which I think is terrible. Like you worked for those extra few bucks, let them keep it. And I think if he can just keep his own craziness out of it and stick to some of those things he's promised, I think he's going to be an okay guy for them. That's just my opinion. And Harris, to me, just did more impressions than I do. So
there you go. I think the challenge for Trump is to unite both sides and have less division in the country. If that can be accomplished, and it's a win in my books.
Yeah, and you know what? You're absolutely correct, and I think that it just again, not to talk politics, but in a sense, but if we can just have, let's say, those three pieces of the puzzle out of all that he's promised gets done, and people have more money to spend and more money to spend on themselves, they're going to spend it on the economy, and the economy is going to help out. And yeah, you know what? Maybe when some of the Democrats start seeing that they got an extra $100 or $200 in their pocket, they're going to go, you know what? Maybe he's not that bad, right? And I always say the same thing, whether you're liberal or conservative here. I think each side might have something good. It's up to them to do that good part. And I just find that sometimes we get lost in the sense of the evilness that some of them do. And if Trump can help people with their taxes and get a little bit more money in their pocket and afford, like they said, eggs and gas, I think he's going to do okay. And like you just said, unites. That's the only thing I don't understand. And now you're going to get me going on that. People are losing friends in the States. Like I have friends down in the States, and you know, some voted one, some voted the other. And I just seen that the people that were on the Democratic side are so angry at people who voted for Trump, they're not talking to their friends anymore. And I think there's a division, right? You are dividing people by a vote, and you know, everybody has that vote to think who's better for them. And I don't think that's a problem. Like I don't find like people that were Trump supporters are not friends with their Democratic neighbor anymore, you know, at their house. Like you just, I'd still go outside and say, hey, how's it going, Steve? You know, I don't care who you voted for. That was your choice. That's why America and Canada are great, because we have that choice to vote who we wanted. You know, and like the Democrats said when Biden won, hey, the people spoke. Well, guess what? They spoke this time too. Deal with it. Come back in 4 years and have better things to say, I guess.
Speaking of spoken, Jimmy Mack, any social media places you like people following you or communicating or connecting with you?
No, I hate being followed.
Channel?
I hate being followed, so I don't have Twitter. I don't have Facebook anymore. I really just decided to leave it all, because to me this is just my own thing. You would get on Twitter or X, and it was constant anger and hate, and you get on Facebook, and the same thing seems to happen. So I just avoid it all now. It's just easier to avoid it all. I have no social media for anybody to yell at me that I was a Trump supporter, and I'm more of a Hulk Hogan supporter than Trump. How's that? So
there you go.
Yeah, I have no social media, or if anything, like, yeah, I don't know. I have nothing. I used to have it all, and I don't any longer. Just not worth my time.
So to finish off, then the lesson of the day from Jimmy Mack: if something doesn't serve you, let it go. Social media for Jimmy Mack doesn't work. He let it go, and his life is better. So
honestly, you know, it sounds crazy. So just like I did have a podcast I was running for a little while with a friend of mine, and then life happened. So that's sort of on hold for a little while, just because life happened, and I won't get into detail on that. But I went from Twitter having, like, I think it was 11 or 12,000 followers, which not too bad for a guy who's not in the media any longer. And it just, you know, that was tough to let go of, because it takes a while to build like real people rather than bots. Sure. And it just still, your own main page sees so much negativity that I just decided it's just not worth the time. And I can get kind of agitated too, and you know, people start poking the bear a bit. But I do find that the mental situation has improved since not being on the social media. Facebook was my last straw. That I just finally said, you know what, and I'm sure, I don't know if you're on Facebook, but I would find, I had an account of social media. Like I worked in television, so I worked for, I don't know if you remember this, the Breakfast television show. So I would have literally 4,500 friends on Facebook. And I got to the point where I said, like, after I left the TV station, I started realizing I really don't have 4,500 friends. You know what I mean? Like it just made, like, I have 10 close friends, like we all probably do. And I think it's great for connecting with people maybe that you haven't seen in a long time. But now I find that people, like, if I want to connect with somebody, I would personally rather phone them and chat with them than messenger, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Because you kind of, like, I like that, and I find the art of communication has been lost in the artificialness of social media, because anybody can be that keyboard warrior and agitate anybody, and you can go under any names and blah blah blah. And I don't know. That's just me. Call me old school. I'm friends with Don Cherry, so maybe that's why I just like calling him and chatting with him. He's not on social media, so to speak. So it's one of those things that I just prefer to talk with somebody. I mean, we now have plans in all our cell phone plans that we can call anywhere included in our plan. So I wish people would go back to just talking. I just think it's the best way to be. That's my opinion.
Well, I wish you the best of luck, and I like the idea of you thinking about coming back with a podcast, and maybe one of your future guests could be Don Cherry to relaunch. So think about that in the future, and appreciate your time, Jimmy. Looking forward to meeting you in
Yeah.
person on November 16th in Ile-des-Chênes. Hopefully, you can find your way here without a GPS.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I used to go out to Ile-des-Chênes to the there was a car a wrecker out there. So I do know where Ile-des-Chênes is.
Right on. Okay, thank you so much.
All
And
right.
we're gonna end this cast right now. Thank you, Jimmy Mack.
All right. Take care. Thanks for having me.